A protocol officer Vex'Tara of the Unified Galactic Council had prepared for this moment her entire career. First contact with a new sapient species was always a delicate affair, especially with primitive worlds just discovering faster-than-light travel. Earth was classified as potentially volatile but technologically immature, which meant the standard diplomatic approach: speak softly, move slowly, and never show teeth. Remember, Vex'Tara instructed her team as they prepared to receive the Earth delegates, her translucent blue skin rippling with professional excitement. These humans have only just discovered hyperdrive. They'll be nervous, probably in awe. Our job is to make them feel welcome without overwhelming them. The delegation from Earth was due to arrive any minute in Docking Bay 7 of the Galactic Council's massive space station. Vex'Tara had memorized the proper greeting for humans: a gentle nod, hands clasped at chest level, eyes downcast in respect. The Council's xenobiologists had assured her that humans were a cautious hierarchical species who would appreciate the deference. The airlock hissed open. Ambassador Jack Hawkins strode through the door like he owned the place, 6 feet 2 inches of confident human in a tailored navy suit. He was flanked by his diplomatic team, Communications Director Meredith Merry Rodriguez, a woman with a booming laugh and quick movements, Security Chief Marcus Thompson, a mountain of muscle with a perpetual frown, and Cultural Attaché Duke Wellington, who had immediately pulled out a data pad and was taking notes while munching on something called beef jerky. "Hello there," Jack bellowed, extending a hand toward Vex'Tara with alarming speed. "Ambassador Jack Hawkins, representing Earth. Damn fine station you've got here." Vex'Tara involuntarily retreated 3 steps, her color shifting to defensive gray. The human had shown teeth. Was this aggression? And he was approaching rapidly with an outstretched limb, a clear dominance display among many predator species. "Protocol Officer Vex'Tara," she stammered, her translator struggling to match her suddenly high-pitched voice. "We welcome Earth to the Galactic community." Jack's hand remained extended. Behind him, Mary whispered something, and Jack laughed, a sudden, explosive sound that caused 2 junior protocol officers to emit distress pheromones. Right. Different customs, Jack said, withdrawing his hand but maintaining his intimidating smile. "We're supposed to read your welcome packet on the way here, but truth be told, we were all too excited to focus. And first aliens and all that. Say, is there anywhere to get coffee around here? We've been traveling for days." Coffee. The stimulant beverage humans consumed multiple times daily. The Council's research indicated it contained chemicals that would be classified as controlled substances on 17-member worlds. "Ambassador," Vex'Tara managed, her composure returning somewhat. "Perhaps we should proceed to your quarters where refreshments await. The Council has prepared a suitable habitat based on Earth specifications." As she led them through the station's corridors, Vex'Tara couldn't help but notice how the humans walked, upright, swinging their arms, taking long strides. Most evolved prey species in the galaxy moved with careful, energy-conserving motions. These humans moved like predators, confident predators. And they kept making those sharp, barking laugh sounds. When Marcus Thompson yawned, revealing rows of omnivorous teeth, including the pointed canines typical of meat-eaters, a passing Xilian diplomat nearly fainted. "So when do we meet the big bosses?" Jack asked, slapping Vex'Tara on what he probably thought was her shoulder but was actually a sensitive respiratory membrane. "We've got some trade proposals we're eager to discuss." As Vex'Tara gasped for breath, she began to wonder if the Council had made a terrible mistake. These weren't the meek diplomats she'd expected. Earth hadn't sent diplomats at all. They'd sent apex predators in suits. The Grand Council chamber was the pride of galactic civilization, a vast, softly lit amphitheater where representatives from over 300 worlds gathered to discuss matters of interstellar importance. Its acoustic design allowed even whispered communications to carry to the appropriate translator systems while maintaining privacy. The architecture emphasized gentle curves and soothing colors selected to be inoffensive to all known species' visual systems. It was into this carefully calibrated environment of diplomacy that the humans burst like a supernova. "Whoa, check out the ceiling." Jack's voice boomed across the chamber as the Earth delegation entered, causing several delegates to instinctively flatten themselves against their cushioned seats. It's like the United Nations on steroids. The UB. Vex'Tara had spent the previous night cycle updating the Council's Diplomatic Relations Committee on the humans' behavior. As a result, the seating arrangement had been modified to place Earth's delegation at a comfortable distance from the more easily startled species. Ambassador Hawkins, the Grand Councillor ZT, addressed them, his insectoid mandibles clicking softly. "We welcome Earth to this historic session. You may take your designated seats." Jack flashed another one of those teeth-baring expressions and led his team to their seats. Mary was carrying a large metal container which emitted a strong aroma that caused the olfactory-sensitive Phlox delegation to discreetly activate their scent filters. "Hope you don't mind if we brought coffee," Jack said, unscrewing the container. "We're still adjusting to your station's day cycle." The Grand Councillor's compound eyes blinked rapidly. "Of course, Ambassador. Your biological needs are accommodated under Section 7 of the Visitor's Charter." As the session began with the traditional recitation of the Galactic Charter's preamble, Vex'Tara observed the humans with growing unease. They didn't sit still like proper diplomats. Mary's leg bounced constantly. Marcus kept scanning the room as if assessing threats. Duke was somehow manipulating a small electronic device under the table while appearing to pay attention. And Jack was making notes with a primitive writing implement that made a scratching sound audible throughout the chamber. When the Doraxian representative began her speech on resource-sharing protocols, Jack suddenly leaned over to whisper something to Mary. She responded with one of those explosive human laughs, causing several nearby delegates to emit warning pheromones. "Is there an issue, Earth delegation?" the Grand Councillor inquired. No, Jack replied, still showing teeth. "Please continue." Fascinating stuff. 2 hours into the session, the true disaster occurred. The Qlath representative, Ambassador KRZT, was detailing his empire's recent territorial expansions when Mary's face contorted strangely. Ah, a Q. The sound was like a small explosion, accompanied by a visible spray of moisture droplets. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. The Exilians, believing they were under biological attack, engaged their personal force fields. The Phlox delegation released defensive spores that turned the air around them purple. 3 species capable of voluntary unconsciousness promptly fainted. "What is the meaning of this attack?" Ambassador KRZ demanded, his scaled skin flushing crimson as his bodyguards moved protectively around him. "Attack? What attack?" Jack looked genuinely confused. "Oh, the sneeze? That's just a normal human biological function, and nothing to worry about. Your diplomatic assistant just expelled bodily fluids at high velocity," KRZ hissed. "I'm so sorry," Mary said, wiping her nose with a cloth. "Spring allergies. Should have taken my antihistamine this morning." Vex'Tara rushed to the Earth delegation, desperately trying to salvage the situation. "Perhaps, Ambassador Hawkins, your team could benefit from a short recess to compose yourselves." "We're perfectly composed," Jack said, taking a loud slurp of coffee. "Oh. But sure, a bathroom break wouldn't hurt." As Vex'Tara escorted them out, emergency cleaning drones were already sterilizing the area where Mary had sneezed. In the corridor, Vex'Tara overheard 2 Doraxian diplomats whispering. "Did you see how quickly they move? And those teeth? And they consume stimulants openly during council sessions. With the audacity. I heard they're from a death world with extreme temperature variations and constant predator threats. No wonder they're so aggressive." "Oh." Vex'Tara sighed. This was only the first day, and already the humans had managed to terrify half the council. How much worse could it get? As if on cue, Duke Wellington sneezed, causing a passing Glyptorian to drop all 4 data pads it was carrying. The Qlath Empire had dominated its sector for millennia through a combination of military might and intimidation tactics. Their species evolved from apex predators on their homeworld, and they had cultivated that image carefully in their diplomatic relations. Ambassador KRZT was especially proud of his intimidation skills, honed through centuries of diplomatic service. So it particularly irked him that the humans seemed utterly unimpressed by the Q-Lath. 3 days after the sneezing incident, KRZT requested a private meeting with the Earth delegation. Vex'Tara, as protocol officer, was required to attend and possibly prevent interstellar war. KRZT arrived with 4 heavily armed guards, their ceremonial plasma blades gleaming under the conference room lights. He himself wore the traditional Q-Lath war diplomat armor, complete with trophy spikes from conquered species, now just decorative replicas, but as actual trophies had been banned by council law for 8 centuries. Jack Hawkins showed up 5 minutes late, with only Mary Rodriguez and a plate of something he called finger sandwiches. "Sorry for the delay," Jack said cheerfully, setting the food on the table. "Got turned around in the East Corridor. This station's layout is a real maze. Help yourself to sandwiches." KRZT's nostril slits flared in what Vex'Tara recognized as offense. Being late to a Q-Lath meeting was considered a grave insult, and offering food implied the Q-Lath couldn't provide for themselves, another insult in their culture. Ambassador Hawkins, KRZT began, his translator barely containing the growl in his voice. "The Q-Lath Empire demands an explanation for Earth's aggressive stance." Jack paused mid-bite on his sandwich. "Aggressive stance? I'm not following you, Ambassador." KRZT slammed a clawed hand on the table. "Do not play innocent. Your species has laid claim to the Orion Spur, directly bordering our territory. Your diplomatic team displays predatory behaviors in council chambers, and our intelligence suggests you are militarizing rapidly." Vex'Tara tensed. This was precisely the confrontation she'd feared. In her experience, when the Q-Lath threats, most species responded with immediate concessions. Jack took another bite of his sandwich, chewed thoughtfully, and shrugged. "The Orion Spur has been our neighborhood for as long as we've been looking at the stars, Ambassador. We're not claiming anything that wasn't already our backyard. As for militarizing, we've got one small fleet of exploration vessels with basic defensive capabilities. Hardly the armada you're suggesting." KRZ's scales rippled in the Q-Lath equivalent of a threatening display. "You dare dismiss the concerns of the Q-Lath Empire? Our armada has conquered 17 star systems, our warriors trained from hatching for glorious combat. One word from Emperor ZK-Tael, and your primitive world would be reduced to ash." Jack casually reached for another sandwich. "That would be a pretty serious breach of Galactic Council law, wouldn't it? Article 17. I believe prohibition against unprovoked aggression against member worlds." He turned to Vex'Tara. "We are officially a member world as of yesterday's vote, correct?" Vex'Tara nodded, amazed at the humans' calm. Most species would be secreting fear pheromones profusely by now. KRZT leaned forward, baring his serrated teeth. "You think council laws would save you? How typical of a prey species to hide behind regulations rather than stand and fight." To Vex'Tara's horror, Jack laughed, a full, hearty sound that echoed off the walls. Mary joined in, and the 2 humans shared an amused glance that made even Vex'Tara uncomfortable. "Ambassador KRZT," Jack said, still smiling, "I think there's been a misunderstanding about humans. We're not hiding behind anything. We just prefer to resolve things peacefully when possible. But make no mistake, Earth has its own teeth." The casual threat, delivered with a smile and while eating a sandwich, had a profound effect on KRZT. In Q-Lath culture, only the most dangerous predators could remain so calm when challenged. "This meeting is concluded," KRZT announced abruptly, standing up. "The Q-Lath Empire will be watching Earth closely." After the Q-Lath delegation departed, Vex'Tara turned to Jack. "Ambassador, do you realize you just effectively threatened one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy?" "Threatened?" Jack looked genuinely surprised. "I was being diplomatic. You should see how we handle bar arguments back home." That evening, the humans held what they called a poker night in their quarters, a ritual that, according to Council intelligence, involved strategic deception, territorial displays, and the consumption of various intoxicants. When images of the humans' aggressive facial expressions during this ritual reached Cao Zi's T, he immediately transmitted a priority communication to Emperor ZK Tail. The humans are engaging in war council preparations. They mock our threats with displays of dominance. Exercise extreme caution. They do what? Emperor ZK Tail's voice boomed through the secure communication chamber. The Q-Lath spy agent VK Law repeated his findings. They immerse themselves in near boiling water. Emperor, pray for pleasure. They call it taking a hot shower, and some of them deliberately enter superheated rooms to sit and perspire. Emperor ZK Tail's scales shifted to a disturbed pattern of red and black. The intelligence reports on humans had been growing increasingly alarming over the past 2 weeks. Continue, he commanded. They consume neurotoxins daily: caffeine, alcohol, capsaicin, substances that would kill lesser beings. They deliberately seek out foods containing capsaicin, claiming to enjoy the burning sensation. Masochistic endurance rituals, another intelligence officer suggested. Most disturbing of all, VK Law continued. They sleep completely unconscious, for 8 hours at a time. Utterly defenseless, yet they evolved as a dominant species on a planet filled with predators. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. What kind of species could afford to be so vulnerable unless they had eliminated all threats? Unless they were the ultimate threat? Across the Galactic Council, similar conversations were occurring as more species interacted with the human delegation. The Council's Scientific Advisory Committee had convened an emergency session titled The Human Question. Their homeworld should be classified as a death world, insisted Dr. Neary, a gaseous entity contained in an environmental suit. The temperature variations alone would kill most species. They endure everything from -50 to 50 degrees Celsius. And their entertainment, added another scientist, a gelatinous mass quivering with agitation. They simulate dangerous situations for amusement. They call it action movies and roller coasters and horror stories. They deliberately induce fear responses for fun. Meanwhile, blissfully unaware of the growing concern they were causing, Jack Hawkins and his team were focused on their actual diplomatic mission. They had established preliminary trade agreements with 7 species, arranged cultural exchange programs, and were currently negotiating access to the Galactic Council's scientific database. I don't get why they're being so cautious about sharing their tech, Jack said as his team prepared for another council session. We've been completely transparent about what we're offering. Mary was reviewing her notes. Cultural differences, probably. I've noticed they get nervous whenever we make sudden movements or laugh too loudly. Marcus, who rarely spoke during official functions, but was insightful in private, offered his theory. They think we're dangerous. Haven't you noticed how they keep their distance? How conversations stop when we enter rooms? Duke looked up from his data pad. That's ridiculous. We've been nothing but friendly. Friendly by human standards, Marcus pointed out, but think about it from their perspective. We move faster than most of them. We're loud. We eat almost anything. We openly consume what they consider drugs. And we don't seem intimidated by their predator species like the Q-Lath. Jack considered this. You might be onto something, but how do we convince them we're not a threat? Before they could develop this thought further, Vex'Tara arrived to escort them to an emergency council session. Her color was an anxious purple. Is everything okay? Jack asked. The Q-Lath have filed a formal complaint against Earth, she explained hurriedly. They claim you're preparing for military action. What? That's absurd. They presented evidence of your war council. Jack looked confused. War council? We haven't held any war council. The gathering in your quarters, Vex'Tara clarified, with the colored tokens and strategic deception rituals. The humans exchanged glances before Mary burst out laughing. They think poker night is war planning? Oh my God! That's priceless. Vex'Tara's color deepened to a concerned indigo. This is not humorous, Ambassador. The Q-Lath are calling for sanctions against Earth. As they hurried to the council chambers, Jack whispered to his team, Let me handle this, and try not to laugh. Apparently it scares them. Duke whispered back. Maybe we should be a little scared too. They've completely misunderstood everything about us. What else are they getting wrong? It was a sobering thought. The gap in understanding wasn't just cultural, it was fundamental. And in galactic politics, misunderstandings could lead to disaster. The emergency council session was already underway when the Earth delegation arrived. The chamber had been rearranged. The human seating area was now isolated by a subtle but unmistakable security field. Grand Councillor ZTK was attempting to maintain order as various delegates shouted over each other. At the center of the chaos stood Emperor ZKL himself, the first time in 3 centuries that the Q-Lath ruler had personally attended a council session. The 7-foot reptilian monarch was resplendent in ceremonial battle armor, complete with an energy staff that hummed with barely contained power. His honor guard formed an intimidating perimeter around him. The evidence is clear. ZK-Tail was declaring, "The humans are a dangerous predator species masquerading as diplomats. Their behavioral patterns match those of conquest-phase civilizations." Jack strode confidently to the Earth delegation's podium, keenly aware that every eye, optical sensor, and sensory apparatus in the chamber was focused on him. "Emperor ZK-Tail," Jack began, his voice steady, "I must object to these characterizations of my species and our intentions." The Emperor turned his massive scaled head toward Jack, vertical pupils narrowing. "You deny that humans are predators?" Jack considered his response carefully. "Technically, humans are omnivores. But yes, our evolutionary history includes predatory behaviors. That doesn't make us a threat to galactic peace." A murmur ran through the chamber. Jack had just admitted what many suspected: humans were indeed predators. "You see?" ZK-Tail gestured dramatically. "They confess their nature. And yet they infiltrate our council, observe our defenses, map our territories." Jack sighed audibly. Another behavior most council species found unsettling. "Emperor, we're not infiltrating anything. We were invited to join the Galactic Council. As for the alleged war council in our quarters, that was a card game. Poker. It's recreation, not military planning." The Emperor slammed his staff against the floor, sending a small energy pulse rippling outward. "Do not insult my intelligence, human. Our intelligence agents observed your aggressive displays, your territorial markers, your consumption of mind-altering substances, while engaging in deception tactics." "You mean the poker faces, the chips, and the beer," Mary muttered. Just loud enough for the translator to pick up. Jack reached into his suit pocket, causing several security drones to activate and hover closer. Slowly, he withdrew a deck of playing cards. "This is what you're afraid of, Emperor," Jack said, holding up the deck. "Pieces of paper with numbers and symbols. We use them to play a game. For fun. A training exercise for war." ZKL insisted. "For entertainment," Jack corrected. "Look, I'm happy to teach you the rules. It's actually quite enjoyable." The casual offer to share what the Q-Lath believed was military technology shocked the chamber into silence. Jack pressed his advantage. "While we're clearing the air, let's address some other misconceptions. Yes, humans come from a world with diverse environments and significant challenges. Yes, we move quickly compared to some species. Yes, we consume caffeine and occasionally alcohol. None of this makes us warmongers." "Then explain your reaction to our military threats," ZK-Tail demanded. "No rational species would remain calm when facing Q-Lath might unless they possessed superior firepower." Jack glanced at his team, then back at the Emperor, or unless we simply didn't consider it a real threat. The chamber erupted again. For a predator species like the Q-Lath, there was no greater insult than being dismissed as non-threatening. ZK-Tail raised his energy staff, which began to glow ominously. "You dare." Before security could intervene, Jack held up his hands placatingly. "That came out wrong. What I meant was, we took your statements as diplomatic posturing, not literal threats of war. On Earth, leaders often use strong language that isn't meant to be taken as immediate declaration of hostilities." Diplomatic posturing. The Emperor seemed genuinely confused. "Yeah, Jack continued, warming to his explanation, talking tough as part of negotiations. We do it all the time. It doesn't mean we're actually going to attack each other. Vex'Tara moved closer to Jack, her color a warning orange. Ambassador, in Q-Lath culture, threats are never made lightly. They are sacred promises of action. Jack's eyes widened slightly. Ah, cultural difference. My apologies, Emperor. We misunderstood the gravity of your statements. For a tense moment, the Emperor stared at Jack, assessing. Then, unexpectedly, he began to make a rasping sound that the translators couldn't interpret. It took several seconds for the council to realize the Emperor was laughing. How utterly bizarre, Vex'Tara finally said. You humans face death threats with confusion rather than fear. Perhaps that explains how you survived on your death world. Before Jack could respond, Duke stepped forward with a tray that had been sitting on their delegation table. Emperor Vex'Tara, would you care for a brownie? It's a traditional Earth peace offering. The security drones immediately scanned the chocolate treats for toxins. You offer food? To me? The Emperor seemed torn between offense and curiosity. It's considered polite on Earth, Duke explained. Sharing food is a sign of trust and friendship. After the security scan confirmed the brownies were safe for Q-Lath physiology, the Emperor cautiously took one. The entire council watched in fascinated horror as the leader of the most feared empire in the galaxy bit into a chocolate dessert. His reaction was not what anyone expected. The Emperor's scales shifted to a color never before seen in council chambers, a shimmering gold that indicated extreme pleasure in Q-Lath biology. This is extraordinary, Vex'Tara declared. What is this substance? Chocolate, Duke said, smiling. Humans love it. It contains theobromine, which is mildly psychoactive for us. Completely addictive. In the best way. The Emperor took another bite. You consume this willingly? Regularly? On special occasions, Jack confirmed, and sometimes just because it's Tuesday. The absurdity of the situation, the fearsome Emperor of the Q-Lath enthusiastically devouring a brownie while discussing recreational drug use with supposedly dangerous humans, was not lost on the council. The tension in the chamber began to dissipate. Perhaps, the Grand Councillor ventured, we have all been too hasty in our judgments of our new human colleagues. 3 months after what became known as the Brownie Incident, the Galactic Council published the first edition of Human Interaction Protocols, a comprehensive guide to understanding and communicating with Earth's representatives. These sections included sudden loud noises, why humans laugh and how to prepare yourself, coffee and chocolate, cultural significance, and safe distance recommendations, facial expressions, when showing teeth is not a threat, physical contact, the handshake and other alarming Earth customs. The guide became required reading for all diplomats assigned to human interaction duties. Vex'Tara, who had survived the initial human contact, was promoted to head of human relations, a position that came with hazard pay and mandatory stress relief sessions. The Earth delegation, meanwhile, had finally pieced together why everyone had been so nervous around them. So, let me get this straight, Jack said during a private meeting with Vex'Tara. The entire council thought we were some kind of super predators pretending to be diplomats. Vex'Tara's color shifted to embarrassed yellow. You must understand, Ambassador. Your species displays many concerning characteristics. You move rapidly, consume toxins for pleasure, show teeth frequently, and remain calm in situations where most species would display fear. Jack laughed, causing Vex'Tara to flinch slightly despite her months of exposure to humans. And all this time we thought we were being perfectly normal. There is no normal in galactic diplomacy, Vex'Tara explained, but humans are uniquely intimidating without intending to be. The misconception had ultimately worked in Earth's favor. Trade agreements that might have taken years to negotiate were expedited. Scientific exchanges were approved with minimal bureaucracy. And the Q-Lath Empire, impressed by humanity's apparent fearlessness and addiction to chocolate, had proposed a military alliance. I still can't believe Emperor Vex'Tara requested our brownie recipe, as part of the official treaty, Mary remarked. A Duke, who had been studying xenobiology, offered his insight. Apparently, chocolate affects their neurotransmitters similarly to how it affects humans, but more intensely. It's like their version of euphoria. So we've secured galactic peace with dessert, Jack mused, not exactly how I imagined first contact would go. In the council chambers, Earth now occupied a more central position, partially out of respect, and partially because several species had overcome their initial fear and discovered that humans were fascinating conversation partners. As Jack prepared for the day's session, Vex'Tara approached with a data pad. Ambassador, I have a request from the Scientific Advisory Committee. They're curious about another human tradition they've observed, something called high fives. Jack grinned, causing Vex'Tara's color to shift slightly despite her best efforts at control. Tell them I'd be happy to demonstrate. But they might want to prepare themselves. It involves sudden movement and loud noises. Vex'Tara made a note. I'll advise them to bring emotional support personnel. As they walked together toward the council chambers, Jack reflected on the strange journey that had brought humanity to this point. They had come seeking diplomatic relations and scientific knowledge. Instead, they had accidentally established themselves as the galaxy's most intimidating diplomats, apex predators in suits who could terrify with a sneeze and secure peace treaties with baked goods. You know, Jack said, back on Earth, there's an old saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. I think we've accidentally reversed it. We speak loudly and carry brownies. Vex'Tara's translator struggled momentarily with the idiom, but she understood the sentiment. Perhaps that is humanity's unique contribution to galactic diplomacy, Ambassador. You show us that predators can choose peace, that strength doesn't necessitate aggression. Jack nodded thoughtfully. I'll drink a coffee to that. Vex'Tara shifted to alarmed purple. Perhaps not during today's session. No promises, Jack said with a wink. After all, we have a reputation to maintain. As the doors to the council chamber opened, Jack straightened his tie and put on his most diplomatic smile, complete with visible teeth. Earth hadn't set out to send apex predators as diplomats, but as long as the rest of the galaxy believed it, they might as well use it to their advantage. And stock up on brownies. Lots and lots of brownies,